How do you make sure when you hire someone that they immediately start making a contribution and justifying their paycheck? Well, that's where your onboarding process comes in. And today's episode of Construction Genius is all about onboarding with my guest, Manja Horner. She's an expert on onboarding. All the links are in the show notes so that you can contact her after the show if you like what she has to say and if you're interested in her services. But with that, we're just going to dive right into the interview. Let's go. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Manja, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Eric.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. We're going to dive right in. We're going to talk about onboarding. So what's the biggest mistake companies make when onboarding new employees, and how does it impact long-term retention and performance?
Okay, well, the biggest issue that I've seen is that they don't have a plan for onboarding. And I hope that doesn't sound like a cop-out to your question, but it's really important that you have a plan for onboarding. You have a plan for pre-boarding. So what are the activities that are being done before a new employee actually arrives? What does their first day look like? What does that first week, the 30, the 60, the 90 days? So that's the biggest issue, is that I see they don't actually have a good plan. And so the first day of a new hire's experience is not positive. We want them to go home at the end of that first day and say to their loved one, their mom, their spouse, their partner, when they say, "How was your day?" we want them to say, "It was awesome, and here's why." So it's a really critical day for a new hire. And that initial day can actually impact their feeling about the company long term. So 24% of people will leave within a short period of time if their onboarding experience wasn't great. But 69% of people will stay for 3 or more years if they've had a great onboarding experience. So there is some data that backs up those crucial first days and weeks on the job.
Okay, so let's talk about that first day. As the company owners, what should we look to make sure that gets accomplished in the first day with a new employee's onboarding?
Okay, well, let me back up to the few things that should be done to set them up for that first day.
Yeah, let's do it.
So some of the essentials are some communication and a welcome kit that you could send a new hire upon their acceptance. So make sure that you've done all of the paperwork and things, but setting them up with some communication ahead of time, like what are the work hours? What are your expectations for that first day? What should they wear? Some of the protocols. Start details are important for those people who really want to make sure that they get there on time. What's the location, the address? So these things can feel maybe a little bit overlooked, but are important for that new hire.
Why are they important? Because again, it seems like, what about communicating those sort of nits and lice stuff is important?
Well, it just sets an expectation for the individual that they know what to do when they get there. Nobody likes feeling awkward. You know, most of us aren't super extroverted and love showing up and flying by the seat of our pants.
Yep.
So it just gives somebody that sense of, I know what to expect. I know who I'm asking for. I know where to park. I'm not going to be getting in the way. Like, we all have these little mental hiccups that can stop us from feeling comfortable. So a lot of what we're doing for the onboarding in that first day is making sure they feel super welcome, like an invited guest. We're excited to have them there. We're prepared for them.
Yes.
So I don't know, but I'm sure almost all of us can recollect a job where we felt awkward and we felt like they weren't prepared for us. And there's nothing worse than that feeling, whether you're an office role and you're sitting down and there's no desk or no computer or no passes, like no keys, to a field worker where they don't know who they're supposed to be meeting with and they don't know what equipment they're supposed to have for day one. And they feel awkward, and that's not a good day.
Yep. So we talked about this. So that's a little bit of the pre-boarding. So let's go again into the first day. What are you looking to accomplish at the end of the first day so that they're going back and saying, it was awesome, and here's why?
Okay, great. So I love that question. Certainly we want to make the day about our new employee. So there should be a warm welcome immediately from their manager or their supervisor. There should be a very early introduction to an identified mentor or a buddy who they can ask questions, the stuff that they maybe don't want to bug the boss about, especially if they're on the phone and they're just standing around going, oh my goodness, I'm waiting for this phone call to end. You want to make sure they have a personnel buddy or mentor.
So the mentor is not the boss. I just want to be clear.
It may be, it may not be.
Okay.
I don't know. It depends on the size of your organization.
Sure.
The boss or, leader of a crew, let's just put it into construction context, they may assign them a peer buddy.
Yep.
Someone to show them like, where's the bathroom? What are some of our norms? Here's when we take our breaks, like some of the norm things.
Yep.
We're trying to very quickly figure out how to get this person integrated into the team and into the culture. And what are the cultural norms? What are the things that are typical for us? For example, a norm might be on time is late. We have to be 15 minutes ahead, and that's our norm. There's lots of these. Technically, we have these breaks, but, it's kind of looked down upon or frowned upon if you are smoking every 5 minutes or whatever. You have to come up with that's the kind of stuff a buddy can help with.
Yeah, that's really important, though, because it's interesting how you can be coming into a company and be completely unaware of the cultural subtleties. And it's those that need to be pointed out as quickly as possible, because once they get pointed out, people can usually say, okay, I get it. In this company, this is how we do things, and I can quickly get in line with that.
You bet. Yeah. Introduction to key staff. So if you're welcoming them immediately to an office location, you might take them on a tour. Hey, this is Barb. She does our payroll. And if you have any questions, that's who you talk to. And this is Jan, and she deals with dispatch for all of us to job sites. And here's the project man, maybe do some introductions if you're at an office and you have that start. If it's out in the field and you're going immediately to a site, you want to make sure everybody's been introduced to key people. This can be done digitally as well, by email or text, whatever's your norm, or if you have some sort of a chat channel, an app or something, that's really key.
So let me ask you this. As you're talking about this, let's say you're hiring someone into a management role, a leadership role where you're paying them a bunch of money and they're going to have people reporting to them. So you want to get an ROI really quickly. And because they have people reporting to them, perhaps they're going to have issues that come up almost immediately, right? And so they're going to see behind the curtain quickly. How quickly should I be taking away the mask? And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but we all have these masks that we put up. So I put up a mask while I was hiring them, and that's completely acceptable. But how quickly do I take away that mask and say, okay, we brought you in. Here's the people who are going to be reporting to you. Here's the issues with the team. Here are the things that you're going to be confronted with. Is that the first day? Is it the first week? Is it the first 30 days? Well, what do you think about that?
Okay, so my opinion, and I'm sure there's differing, opinion is that might be appropriate within the first week, but I wouldn't start with that. I would start with, hey, here's the people, here's your workstation, here's your logins, here's your access to your equipment or whatever you need. Here's some general stuff, about our policies. Here's some general things to orient you. Because there's a lot of that orientation that needs to happen just so that they can get their bearings. Because it doesn't matter where you are and how organized you are. There's going to be some aspects of that they need to just wrap their head around in the first day or two. But let's just say now you have Thursday or Friday, you've scheduled a longer one-on-one with that leader, and you want to start showing them into the strategic direction that you want the company to take. You're going to start talking to them about the outcomes that you want for them, success metrics, the stuff they're going to be measured by. You're not doing that in the job interview. That's happening in your first week, where you say, hey, here's your role description. This is your metrics. Here's how we're going to be, what we're looking for, what good looks like. Yep. And then you might start to say, okay, now let's talk a little bit about the nuances and the different roles, some of the challenges we're having. Hey, let's maybe set up another conversation to brainstorm this together. You think about what you might like to do and how you might approach this, and we'll bounce those ideas off. I'm more of a collaborative leader and tend to recommend that when coaching. But yeah, I wouldn't start with this is all the crap immediately. I'd kind of ease into that.
Okay, excellent. So the first day obviously is really important. You want to get them feeling comfortable. First week, you began to talk about that a little bit. It's interesting, right? Because hiring is not a science.
No.
And I work with my clients all the time. I recommend an assessment that people take. You go through a lot of due diligence. You go through multiple interviews, perhaps, if it's a particular position. And yet you still screw up on hires, right? So in other words, you think you've got a good fit, and then after a period of time, you understand that you don't. How can an onboarding be structured so that you figure out as soon as possible, maybe within the first 30, 60 days, maybe 90 days at the most, whether someone is really a right long-term fit for your company?
Okay, so this is a pretty complex question. First of all, you need to be clear on what that role is and what your expectations are. So make sure you have a very clear description of the job, what they have to do as part of the role, and then also what are the things that you might like for them to do and you want to explore if they have the skills or capability. Because of course, we always have formal aspects to our role, and then there's the informal stuff. You find out somebody's really great at a certain thing. So you like to really leverage and lean in on that skill, or that might be an area you want to develop and push further. I like to call that, their zone of genius. I'm always asking, especially with my staff, and we support our clients with doing the same with their staff. Find out, what are they good at? What do they love? How can you help them grow in certain areas? Because that's where the long-term joy comes for an employee. And also that is where an owner or somebody can extend the life of that person in their role and for their company, right? It's finding those cool things that they love to do and you want to help them grow. So that's one thing. Make sure you're clear on the job and the description. And then you want to understand what are the skills that are needed for them to be great. So have a list. My background in trades is actually in painting and historic restoration and in glazing. So did a lot of like that historic restoration stuff, paint stripping, etc. So for a role like mine, you would have wanted to have a list of paint removal strategies, tactics. And then you'd have some standards there. Can they remove the paint without gouging the wood? Can they sand and prep it properly for new paint application? Do they have understanding of the chemicals that are required? And, okay, so that might be one aspect of that skill. So make sure that you are clear on the role, what you want them to do, what are the skills you need to be able to do. And then you have some way of figuring out a hands-on exposure or training or shadowing or demonstration that they can actually do it. So you do need to have a little bit of a journey to take them on. Otherwise, it's very ad hoc and you'll never really know if they're doing it or hitting the mark. You can't measure somebody if you've never set a standard to measure them by.
Hey, hope you're getting a lot of great insights into how to onboard people in your company. Quick break again, just to talk about my course, The Shift. If you're tired of micromanaging, getting stressed out, not being able to use your time effectively, if you know that you need to improve your communication, if you want to build an effective team, if you want to run effective meetings, The Shift is the course for you. It's fully online, so it is self-paced. You can just go step by step through the course. It's packed with tons of insights into how you can be a better leader. And what I want you to do is just go out to the page, theshift.constructiongenius.com, link in the show notes. Check out all the details about the course, and then sign up for the course. It's 100% money back guaranteed if you don't like the course. If it's not worth your time and money, you just contact me, Eric at constructiongenius.com. I'll give you all your money back, so you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by taking this leadership course. So go check it out. And now back to my conversation with Manja. Okay, so you want to be able to establish those standards, clear role and responsibilities, clear KPIs attached to that, get as detailed as you need to get. Why do you think it is that people struggle to acknowledge when they've made a mistake in hiring?
Well, I think what's challenging is that hiring is a bit vulnerable. It's a little bit like dating. And also it's somehow exposing us and our capability to identify the right people, recruit, entice somebody into our world. I think there's a fair bit of vulnerability there. And let's face it, but unless you have a very strong training and learning background like me in HR, where I've spent, my entire career in this world, you probably don't have any formal training on this. So there's that element of, I need to be good at this and I don't really know how to be good at it. And I feel a little silly when I'm not great at it. So we do have a fairly structured hiring process. It involves a test project, which is paid, by the way. We recommend paying somebody for their time, but it's an interesting way of narrowing down people from the start. So you put out a job posting, you get 100 people interested. Part of that job posting that we suggest is there's a video or something where they submit it with why do they want this job and what are they interested about. That cuts loads of people out right from the start. All the tire kickers are gone.
So that's
and then
interesting.
we filter down from there until we're only interviewing maybe 2 or 3 people. And usually by then we have a pretty clear winner.
So what you're saying there, it sounds like, is that if my hiring process is good, then perhaps I'm not going to come across too many people who after 30, 60, 90 days, I'm saying, man, I shouldn't have done that.
I think even an inexperienced leader, hire, recruiter can really reduce a lot of the challenges and the inconsistency if they have a clear process and they just stick to it. I think the trouble is when we hire our friend's son or so-and-so's recommendation without taking them through a rigorous process because we're like, well, Joe says they're good, so they're probably good. That's when we get into trouble.
Yes.
So it's funny because I'm holding up my own strategic plan for myself and we go through the boost process of hiring. Doesn't matter how well recommended they are.
Yeah, that's very interesting, right? Because one of the issues that people have when it comes to hiring is obviously sourcing the talent. And we use recommendations from other people as a quick shortcut. But I think it's an excellent point that you don't want to undermine or subvert your own hiring process just because there's a recommendation.
Yeah, be slow to hire. Make sure you have the key things in place so you can measure somebody's progress immediately. And then, feel free to be fairly quick to fire, if you need to. But if you have that onboarding process and you know very clearly what you're expecting them to do, you set the standards. I have a model as well. I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but
sure, bring it up.
The acronym is DCOM. And I've used this DCOM. And I've used this from banks to construction. It doesn't matter. So D stands for direction. Have you given them the direction that's needed? Have you been specific on the standard and given them direction? That you have to ask yourself that question if somebody's not performing. C is, do they have the competence or the capability? Have you given them the training? Have you showed them? Have you given them a checklist or an SOP or something that indicates how to do it? Have you had them show you and you've given them feedback? That's the capability or the competence.
Yes.
O is obstacle. Have you removed any obstacles or barriers? So do they have the tools they need? Do they have access? Whatever that looks like in your world. And M, do they have the motivation? That's a little harder, but have you given them the incentive? Are they being rewarded or compensated or recognized? Do they even want to be there? Are they a right fit from a culture perspective? Like, do they like the people they work with? Sometimes that's an issue. So that's DCOM. Hopefully that's something listeners might find useful. I write that down and use that all the time. And are you lots using of professionals do too.
Yeah. Are you using that in the onboarding process? How is that applied in the onboarding process?
Well, in the onboarding process, this is a way for you to ask yourself the question. Before you automatically assume that the person is not doing their job, ask yourself, DCOM, have I given direction? Do they have the competency here? Have I removed any obstacles? And are they motivated to do this? And if the answers will reveal themselves. So use this anytime, onboarding or in future challenges that you have with staff.
Okay. So how do you design an onboarding process that accelerates a new employee's ability to contribute rather than just orient them to the company policies? So again, I'm paying them money, and I'm thinking particularly, with either someone in the field, obviously you're going to get them doing something real quickly, and you're able to suss out pretty quickly if they're any good. When it comes to a higher level hire in terms of, obviously upper level management or something like that, there's more complexity involved, so it may take a little bit longer. But at the same time, I want them to get stuck in. I want them to start earning their paycheck and justifying me giving them a bunch of money to come and work with me. So how can I make sure that's happening?
Yeah, so I would involve them in your strategy conversation. So let's just take an upper level hire, for example. If it's I'm going to say director of operations, so we have an example.
Yeah,
so let's just say you're taking somebody who's a director level, it's operations, and it's an external hire. So yes you're going to do all the orientation stuff along the way, and there might be some training you have. Great. But you want them to get involved in what's the strategic direction. So if you have a leadership planning meeting, make sure they're involved in those. structure your meetings and activities so that there's some brainstorming components. So invite them to be weighing in.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? What do you see us stopping or starting or continuing, in your observation of our operations? What have you seen? So give them a few fact-finding days early on, because they're going to be invaluable with that outside perspective.
Yes.
They're going to be able to notice a lot of things right away, like, why the heck are they doing that? Or
Yes.
I've used this somewhere and I think this would be really helpful. So your biggest barrier is if you have a closed mind and are not interested in feedback. That's going to be your biggest downfall. So get a real open mind, engage them with feedback loops fast, and invite them to your strategic planning. So if I'm doing a quarterly planning, for example, and I've got my strat plan from, the year, I'm going to say, this is what we're looking at. What are the pitfalls you see? What are the things you think you could be most beneficial in? And then get them involved right away on the tactics so that they own the outcomes. Don't delegate. Get them to own outcomes and have them present you with a plan for how they would proceed. And then you can tweak and refine and agree. But yeah, there's lots of ways to get people involved and own their section and own their department. But again, they have to be tied into the KPIs, the OKRs, whatever you're measuring them on. You set the standard, you set the direction, you get them to weigh in. Hopefully that wasn't too many ideas all at once.
Well, no, see, what's interesting there is that you have a unique opportunity, particularly when you make a high-level hire for a period of time, because they're going to have an outside perspective. They're going to have sort of clear eyes, hopefully. And that can be tremendously advantageous. But it's interesting because on the one hand, you want to get them into your culture and in your way of doing things. But on the other hand, you want to be able to tap into that outsider's insight as much as possible, because they bring with that, if they're experienced and if they're competent, obviously, some insights that could be tremendously useful.
Right. And they might have a whole bunch of great ideas that you're not ready to change all at once. And that's okay. But hey, you could have a parking lot. You could have a spot to park all these great ideas that are fresh. Yeah. So let's say they're like, you know what, this software you're using isn't great. I recommend we do something else. Okay, cool. Well, a software migration is a massive work project. So you might say, give me a budget for that, help me with a plan, and we'll look at rolling that out maybe in Q3 or Q4 if it makes sense. So capture the ideas while they're fresh, put them in a parking lot, and see how you can work them into the strategic plan so that you're not changing a billion things all at once. That could be a caution.
Hey, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. I'll tell you, this book is so cool. I want you to go to Amazon, search for the book, and then read the reviews. We have over 50 reviews from folks. We have a 5-star rating, and they have a tremendous amount of insight in these reviews regarding why the book is beneficial to someone in construction. And this is what I want to offer you. It's a 100% guarantee that you're going to enjoy the book. In other words, you buy it, you read it. If you don't get value out of it, shoot me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will Venmo you your money that you paid for the book. I'm happy to do that because I'm so confident that this book is all killer, no filler, and it will make a tremendous difference in the way that you lead. Go to Amazon, buy the book, and now let's get back to the interview with Manja. How do you onboard someone? This is sort of an inside baseball question, you could say. Let's say you've just let someone go who maybe was a long-term employee and they have a degree of loyalty from the people who reported to them. You bring in someone to replace them, and you know that that loyalty is existing, and perhaps the people who reported to this person are not entirely happy that they're gone. How do you go through the onboarding process to get the new hire not only acclimatized to your policies and procedures, but accepted by those who report to them?
Oh, Eric, this is a big question. Okay, I would suggest you focus in this case on team building. So give yourself some bandwidth to build trust and set some clear expectations and do communicate with everybody that there were certain reasons why this person left. Yes, we all love them. We respect them. We're grateful for everything they did. And we have somebody new. And yeah, I would be focused on some team building, team lunches, or an activity where they can all go and kind of get to know each other, do some bonding. it may sound like, yeah, but that's not our job. But if you want that cohesion, I would suggest you focus on team building for a little while until that new person can build some trust. The other thing I was thinking, it totally fleeted in my mind. So I'll have to circle back around to it. Sorry.
Yep. How do you lay that out, though, for the new hire? Because again, to me, I think it's important to be as upfront with people as possible, saying, hey, listen, you're coming into this environment. This is what happened with Dave. Dave had a tremendously loyal team, and now you're replacing Dave. So I want you to know that you've got some trust that you have to earn here.
Okay. So the other thing I would suggest is understanding who is influential in that team. So there's usually a ringleader, somebody where when they cross their leg left, everyone else follows subconsciously.
Yep.
Actually, I heard that on a Tony Robbins thing the other day. He got into the psychology of the influencer in a large group. And I thought, what a great thing to remember, because it's true. There's usually a ringleader and everybody kind of follows that ringleader. You're going to know who that person is. And they may not become the bestie of this new hire, but see what you can do to behind the scenes kind of get them interacting a little more. Maybe you can, encourage more one-on-one conversations, establish some feedback loops, get the new hire to go to that influencer and say, I know that everyone here respects you the most. I know you're the guy whose loyalty I'm going to have to win, and I'm going to earn that trust. Let's figure this out together. Maybe there's some ways that you can draw that influencer in so that they start to become your advocate in the group. And it does take some time because, teams have these stages, right, of forming, norming, storming. Yes. There are these phases of a team, but lean in on the influencer because you know that there is one.
What do you mean by the forming, norming, storming? What's that?
Oh, goodness. Those are the stages of team development: forming, norming, storming. A quick Google will help with that, but it's forming, norming, storming, and performing. Anyways, I can't remember exactly, but you could look it up. That's a few stages of team development.
What about in a situation where you're hiring someone and again, at a director level, and let's say they're coming into a company where the type of work that you do, the projects that you build, they don't necessarily have the technical acumen in those projects. Maybe they come from a different part of construction because, it's hard to hire sometimes, in particular, if you're in particular geographies or particular types of work. How do you bring someone up to speed? They might have the leadership chops and they may have the communication abilities, but they just lack a little bit of the technical. How do you bring them up to speed as quickly as possible in that area?
This is something that I have sticky notes on my in front of me today, where we as a team at Boost, because we're in the training field, right? So we're actually thinking a little bit about how can we draw from learnings in the military where you get this and you're having to get people up to speed really fast in the field. We're trying to draw some of those learnings into construction. So this is heavily on my mind. Some of the things I would suggest for fast training and getting somebody more up to speed as quickly as you can is I would suggest, and it's a bit of work, but you've got to do ongoing work to backfill your own technical library. So here's what I mean. There's a method that we call camcorder method, and we suggest that people take a lot of video of the technical stuff that they're doing. This is another way to grab the deep expertise from of your more senior staff. So let's say you've got some really awesome craftsmen that work for you and they're within 8 or 5 years of retirement. And you know that when they leave or if something happens or they get hurt and they put out their back and they can't work, you're losing a ton of deep expertise. So you might want to suggest the idea of camcorder method where you set up a phone or a camera on a tripod and you actually film that person doing some of that work. So get in up close, watch them, ask them some questions. What are the pitfalls you're looking for? What are the things you're trying to avoid? We actually do this for our clients sometimes because it takes an outside person to do this. Not everybody can drop their hammer and go and film, Bob work.
Yes.
But if you can start to get your own repository of video, we use AI to help sometimes to take the video and then pull out a checklist or pull out a process or a list of best practices. There's so much technology now that we can leverage. Start to create your own kind of like private YouTube channel, maybe with videos that are well labeled. So you could take one of these hires and actually say, here's a bunch of our content on how we, trim a house or on how we do a great job of building this window or how we do a great job of whatever your thing is.
Yep.
You need to have your own repository of training.
Right.
Now, the other things you can do is get really clear on what the skills are, have them shadow. You could have them try and then reverse shadow, like show you how they do it. In order to get good at something, you have to do it. So,
but I'm thinking, I understand what you're saying in terms of field training. I get that. That's pretty cool. What about at a higher level, though? So again, you're bringing someone in at a leadership level where maybe they're coming in at that director of operations level and they have experience in construction, they have experience building projects, but not your particular types of projects. What do you do in the onboarding process to get them up to speed technically as quickly as possible?
yeah. So again, there's got to be a training path for them. So if the training path is, I'm trying to think of an example to wrap my head around here. It's got to be similar, right? You're not going to hire somebody who has no idea about what you do. That would just be wild. I think you could, that'd be tough, especially in operations. I would say that you need to be clear about what it is they need to know and get good at. And they're going to have to spend some time researching, reading, talking to people on the team, being very open and learning. I think it's tough. I would actually be spending a little bit more time in your hiring process to get somebody who knows your industry a little better. I don't think you'd want to hire somebody who has no clue about your industry, especially in operations. That would be really tough.
Yeah, okay. That's a good answer. So then what's the most effective way to onboard a new project manager in the middle of an active job site without disrupting the project or setting them up to fail?
Okay, so this is going to come back to prep before the person leaves. So you're going to need to have software. So your software needs to be up to date. You're going to need to have documentation of your processes. You're going to need to have that all written down and organized well enough. Otherwise, you're right. They're going to be set up for failure. You're going to need to make sure that you have some SOPs in place, standard operating procedures. And I would say before your person leaves, before you even tell them that they're going to be leaving, you're going to want to spend several weeks paying them a certain number of, or allocating a certain amount of their time to documenting their process. We do this before we help some of our clients let people go. And we know that somebody's going to be coming into backfill. We do this in succession planning for some of our senior roles. We spend time with a time audit. What do you spend your time on? We write it down. We go, what are all your major workflows? What happens at the start of the month, end of the month, daily, weekly, annually? We make sure we know what that cadence of their work is, and then we document it. So you can have them use a tool like Loom, Loom. It's a quick video capture
Loom is
tool.
awesome.
Right. So they should be Loom videoing everything they do.
Yeah.
And then you can, again, use ChatGPT or AI, or another thing I like is called Scribe, Scribe. It's a Chrome extension, and you can create really fast screenshotted SOPs. So I would just make sure before they go, you have them document a lot of what they do. And then it's a lot easier, to pass that information on to somebody else. There might be somebody else on the team who you have step up a little bit for a while to make sure that they have a really clear understanding of where everything's at before they go. Because otherwise your transition will be awful. And I do suggest, don't do this only when you're firing somebody. Have this as part of your values or your standards on an ongoing basis, so that if something, heaven forbid, ever happened, it's not a gong show.
Yep, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I tell you, I know we could go on and on about
onboarding.
It really is. But this is tremendous. We've got some great insights here. So Manja, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your company and what you do to help people.
Sure. Yeah. So myself, Manja Horner, I have founded Boost. And this was out of a necessity that I saw coming from family business and construction. I have spent time in the trades and the shop as a carpenter, and as I mentioned before, painting, glazing, all of that. So I understand the employee experience as well as the owner side. I've been around the dining room table hearing the challenges of owning a construction company and the growth issues. And my professional career was as a learning developer and designer. I worked in major corporate L&D. I've worked with some of the biggest brands in North America, designing coaching and sales and all these other trainings. So I went, you know what? Who do I care a lot about in my business? I care a lot about construction. I care a lot about solving the skilled trades gap that we're having and this skilled labor shortage issue, because I know we've got amazing people retiring and taking a lot of important expertise with them, and there's willing bodies, but they're not there yet. They're not trained yet. So Boost was born out of that. We have 10 people on our team, and we do HR and training, consulting and implementation for skilled trades companies. And it's really when folks are at that 35 or more employee stage and they're just like growing and have to find a way to help ease the employee experience. We have the benefit of making a great experience for the employees, which I love, but also we're helping the owner grow properly. So we get to have a win-win.
That's awesome. And so tell people how we can get in touch with you, please.
Cool. So you can find me. My website is boostld.com. Feel free to go there. There's free resources. We actually have an onboarding checklist that I want to share with your audience, Eric. We'll have a link here for you. It's got the pre-boarding, the first day, the first week, all of that is right in there. So if you wanted to capture some of what I talked about, it's in that download. I'm on Instagram as well, Manja_Horner, so they can find me there. But I'd love to hear from anybody who's having challenges with growth and just want to streamline their employee experience and just feel like their ducks are in a row.
That's great. Great. So it's boostld.com. And then we'll also have a link for that checklist. You can check out the show notes and that link will be there and you can download it. Last question here. I know you're out of Toronto there in Canada. What's the one restaurant someone needs to go to in Toronto when they're visiting?
Oh, my Lord, you have tapped into my number one greatest fear, Eric, which is recommending restaurants.
Oh,
I will. It's funny. Everybody knows I don't like it because I don't like to disappoint with, food. But one of the places that actually was early days for me, I worked at the Keg, which is a fantastic Canadian steakhouse. You will never be disappointed if you eat a meal at the Keg. And if you are, you tell the manager and they'll make it right. So they have done an awesome job with their customer service and their product. So the Keg Steakhouse, I'd say, is an easy go-to, and everyone can find something good on that menu. That's great. And it looks like they have multiple locations too.
Oh, so we're going to put the link in the show notes, thekeg.com.
I love that.
And that's the KEG on the Keg. So if you're familiar with keg stands, you will know how to spell that.
Yes. Right. And I was a former kegger in my early days, and it's an amazing culture to work at. So great spot.
That's great. Well, Manja, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for all the insights you shared with us today.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Manja today. Lots of links in the show notes. We're going to put one into the Keg Steakhouse, as well as to a download that Manja has for you to help with your onboarding process. Go check all of that out. Thank you for listening to the episode today. If you have any questions, contact me, eric@constructiongenius.com. And please give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.